Welcome to Inside Cottonwood. I'm Mayor Diane Joens, your host, and we have two guests with us today, very esteemed guests that we're going to have a lot of interesting conversation. We have Rick Miller, who is the founder and chief treasure hunter of Kids at Hope, and we'll find out exactly what a treasure hunter is. And we have Dr. Paul Ty, superintendent of Mingus Union High School, and he's a leader here in the Verde Valley for the Kids at Hope movement. So, first of all, I'd just like to find out a little bit of information about both of you, and we'll start with Mr. Miller.
Okay.
And would you like to be called Mr. Miller?
You can call me Rick.
Okay. So, Rick?
Well, thank you, Mary, and thank you for inviting me and to learn more about Kids at Hope. Quick bio, this is my 48th year in the field of child and youth development. I started as a day camp counselor with a YMCA and fell in love with the whole notion of helping kids succeed. And that has governed and driven my career for the last 48 years. 30 of those years was spent with Boys and Girls Clubs of America in a wide range of different positions, from a program director, an educational director, an executive director, a director of government United Way relations.
So you've had a lot of experience with children and youth.
Yeah, 15 of those 30 years was the president and executive director of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Metro Phoenix, which is probably the largest facility-based youth development organization west of the Mississippi. So I had that experience, and then in 1993, beginning in that period of time, was kind of consumed with this idea that all kids were capable of success, no exceptions. And that was contrary to what we typically were believing, that some kids were capable of success, but not all kids were capable of success. And we began to use the expression youth at risk. So at that point in time, I began to pursue a research project at Arizona State University to challenge the youth at risk paradigm, to better understand why some kids don't do well and other kids do, and see if we can get a better understanding of that, a better sense of the science around that. Did that for 7 years, and in 2000 announced our conclusions, what the research revealed to us. And from that point forward, for the last 15 years, it's a long history, right? But the last 15 years began to model what the research tells us we should model about young people. So that's kind of a quick down and dirty how I got to where I am today. Started 48 years ago, and today here I am in Cottonwood talking about those efforts.
And I mean, I just imagine how much impact you've had over the years working with our youth and caring about them and thinking, you know, kids at risk, this just isn't, you know, what you say is what you get.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So, Dr. Ty.
Well, good morning, and thank you again for having us here. I think some of the listeners have heard enough about me, but more relative to what I've done with Kids at Hope. I was just listening to Rick and thinking, you know, I think we met in 2001, and I was a principal in the Dysart district, and he introduced the ideology, the belief system of Kids at Hope, and I was like, wow, yeah, that's what my whole career has been based on. And it's just amazing, though, that was 14 years ago. So it seems like yesterday. But, you know, I've, since that time, as a principal in a couple schools and then an assistant superintendent, now 2 years I've been here. It's been an important part of my professional life and personal life, but, you know, really aligns a lot of efforts that, as a leader for schools in particular, with, you know, my personal belief in kids. And that's really, you know, a lot of people get an education, hopefully for kids, and I certainly think I fall in that category. And it's just aligns so closely with my personal beliefs that it's been a big part of every decision I make, and, you know, hopefully everything I do every day on the job and as a parent.
And your teachers at Mingus, they all understand the Kids at Hope concept and that every child is able to succeed without exception. I know that you work with teachers, and you're all learning the program. And they
do, and, you know, we have an exceptional staff, great people that are highly dedicated to kids, and so the same kind of reaction when it was first introduced at Mingus was, wow, yes, that's exactly what I'm in education for. And so there's some, staff there doing exceptional things and, taking the ball and running with it and really aligning things they're already doing and saying, well, I'm doing this for the right reasons, and it affirms a lot of things they're already doing as opposed to, replacing practices. And over time, it helps define the culture, particularly of a school. Even back as a principal, I would, hire teachers who believed in kids, because that's pretty innate, and I can't teach you to believe in kids. I can teach you how to teach,
right,
but I can't teach you to believe in kids. And if you don't believe in kids, I don't want you in my school or now my district.
That's fantastic. And we even have the Yavapai County Probation Department with Scott Mayberry, who's the director, and Kathy Wambacher, a supervisor, are using this program also. And I just think it's making a huge difference all over the state. So we'll get into a little bit of what is Kids at Hope, so that our television audience can learn to understand what does that mean, and why do we not say kids at risk anymore? Why do we use Kids at Hope? So let's just talk a little bit about the history. You kind of covered a little bit of it with yourself. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, in about 1981, we began to use the expression youth at risk. It came out of a report that was commissioned by the Department of Education, and it looked at the many challenges America's children were experiencing.
It was called A Nation at Risk.
It was called A Nation at Risk, and we institutionalized that expression to help us better define, or more easily define, why some kids do well and other kids struggle. Well, it has to be the fact that the kids who don't do well, those are kids who are at risk. And what does that mean? They're at risk of not succeeding in life, socially, economically, primarily. And the reasons for those risk factors, they may come from dysfunctional families, they may grow up in poverty, their parents may have not graduated from high school, they may be new immigrants to the United States, brothers and sisters may have had some contact with law enforcement, there may be drugs in the family or in the community. So we began to identify all these risk factors, and what we learned from that is that as quickly as you label a child at risk because of the conditions from which they come, you automatically put them in a liability column. All of a sudden you're focused on their deficits, not their assets. And we all know from our financial statements, you try to get rid of your liabilities and focus on your assets. And I believe that subconsciously what we began to do was to minimize these kids' opportunities for success.
Saying, oh, they're hopeless.
They're hopeless.
We're just not even going to put any energy into this child or this youth. We're just going to concentrate on the children who can do well, It
was a ready-made excuse for us as to why don't some kids do well. Well, it's not because we don't help them do well. It's because the conditions are so overwhelming, there's no chance of them doing well. And what our research basically revealed to us, it wasn't the risk that held these kids back, it was the lack of hope. It was the absence of hope in their lives. So it seemed to us that we better begin to study what this concept of hope really meant. What were the dynamics of hope? Was there a science behind hope? Does hope exist in your brain? What part of the brain houses hope, and how is hope created in the brain? As language is created in the brain, as imagination is created in the brain, we believe that hope is created in the brain, and it's a learned skill set.
All right. Great. So we have 3 universal truths, and we only have a couple minutes till our first break, but maybe we can start on this. 3 universal truths.
Yeah.
What are those truths? Let's cover number 1 before the break.
Well, the first one is believing in kids, that the reason some kids don't do well is because they're not surrounded by adults who believe in them. These are adults who have almost a self-fulfilling negative prophecy for kids, that they don't believe they're doing well because of these risk factors again. So universal truth number 1 is to help kids succeed. All kids succeed without exception. You got to believe that all kids are capable of success, no exceptions. And what does that look like when that's in operation? How does an entire school embrace a common belief? An entire community that believes in all of its kids, not just some of its kids. And which kids aren't you believing in? And what excuses do we use not to believe in kids? So one of the things that our research revealed to us is that regardless of what research discipline we were studying, whether it be psychology, sociology, criminology, education, medicine, it didn't matter what research discipline we were studying, they all seemed to amplify this one finding, that the first thing we need to do for our kids, the first thing we need to do is believe all of them are capable of success, no exceptions. So the reason we call it a universal truth is, number one, it's universally found throughout the scientific literature, and the other reason we call it a universal truth, it's universally applicable to every child. Every child needs people to believe in them, not just some children.
Absolutely. I agree. We will be right back.
Headaches and back pain are two of the top reasons people choose Mosing Chiropractic. Dr. Mosing also treats symptoms of numbness and tingling, as well as those injured in auto or work accidents. Dr. Mosing uses gentle chiropractic techniques, as well as electric muscle stim and cold laser therapies. Call Dr. Mosing today at 634-0733. No spine left behind at Mosing Chiropractic.
They told me a bottle couldn't dream. That I would never become a superhero. But I learned how to fly. Just to come back in a new disguise. And be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. Mayor Diane Joens, your host, with Rick Miller and Dr. Paul Ty. So we were talking about the universal truths about kids at Hope, and how every youth, every child, we should believe in them and help them attain their goals. And we'll find out how we do some of those things. But okay, so we did cover the first universal truth. What are a couple others?
And we're also talking about, if we're going to put a label on a child, let's put an asset label on a child, because we'll focus on their assets. Let's not put a negative label, a deficit label, a liability label on the kids. Let's focus on their strengths and their ability to contribute. And so that's what Kids Hope movement is all about, is to focus on the assets of children and to make sure that they're surrounded by the adults who truly understand that and are able to provide those types of supports to them. So we did talk about the first universal truth, which was believing in kids. Believing what? Believing all of them are capable of success, no exceptions. Not just some of them are capable of success, but all of them. And that requires a major paradigm shift or mind shift for lots of people, because for too long we've been given the excuse that, or believing in the conventional wisdom that some kids will do well, some kids will do okay, and we better be prepared for our future failures. We've got to change that mindset. We've got to understand that we as a community can help all kids succeed, no exceptions, not give up on kids too quickly.
And we have to believe this because, you know, we're putting more money into prisons than we are education sometimes.
That's right.
And we have to believe that, and spend time with the youth and try to help them see their future. And there's different ways to do that also that we'll hopefully get through. So you want to
cover the
universal,
So we can go in so many different areas.
We can just go all over.
Because it's pretty exciting. I mean,
yes, it is.
This new research that we revealed and that we're pursuing with other groups across the country really is giving us a breath of optimism that we've been lacking for a long time about our children. And part of that is being reflected in some of the politics of today, that we're more readily willing to invest in prisons than we're willing to invest in the futures of our kids, because sometimes we don't believe in the futures of our kids, so we prepare the prisons for those failures that we know are coming, and we play into this horrible self-fulfilling prophecy. But universal truth number two, so I don't digress, but universal truth number two is kids succeed when they have meaningful, sustainable relationships with caring adults. When the community is available, when adults in the community are available for our children to provide guidance and encouragement and information to them, kids do better. what we discovered is that we began to substitute programs for relationships. We believed if we found the right program for a child, something remarkable should happen. And it wasn't the program we discovered made a difference in children's lives. It was the caring adults within those programs. So sometimes you have the right program and the wrong adult. And if that's the case, kids cannot thrive. Sometimes you have the right adult and the wrong program, kids are still going to benefit from it. But when you have the right program and the right adult, yeah, magic actually does happen. So you put together the right formula there. And a caring adult for us is someone who believes in the kid more than the kid believes in themselves, someone who creates opportunities for the kid to experience success. So those are the adults who understand success breeds success, but failure breeds failure. And adults who, and we call these the parent adults, right? Mm-hmm. Who are responsible for the child's physical and emotional well-being 24/7 with unconditional love. So those kids need that, and we advocate that we actually track relationships. If we track unexcused absences, excused absences, grades, we should understand whether our kids are connected and with what adults are they connected with. So that becomes a big part. So that's universal truth number 2, connecting with kids. And universal truth number 3 is really a remarkable finding for us, and it smacks right into the heart of what we mean by hope. And universal truth number 3 is kids succeed when they can articulate their future at 4 destinations, not just one. And articulating their future means that they can visualize what life is going to look like for them in the future. And they're going to look at 4 different destinations versus one. The most common question we ask of our kids is, what do you want to be when you grow up? So we think that everything about childhood through adulthood is about getting an education, getting a job. Well, we all know as adults it's much more rich than that. Mm-hmm. It's about becoming a family member, contributing to your family. It's about giving back to your community, that we're all citizens of our community and we give back. It's about enjoying the quality of life, the hobbies and recreation we can all pursue. And yes, education and career is important, and we do emphasize that, but we emphasize the other 3 destinations. We want kids to visualize their future. We call that mental time travel. We know how the brain now processes it, and we believe that mental time travel is the precursor to becoming hopeful. When you can see your future, return to the present, and prepare for that journey, you have hope. It's an energy force. It's part of the imagination. It's part of the success of being part of the human race.
And you've worked the program and you know it works. You see results. We've
seen remarkable results. We've had 11 different university-led evaluations. We've had 2 doctoral dissertations done on Kids at Hope. We know that if these 3 universal truths are in place, believing in kids, connecting with kids, and helping them time travel, a transformation will take place. And what is that transformation? More kids will succeed without exception. And we're going to get to a point where all kids will succeed without exception. If we can find the vaccine for polio, we can find the vaccine against hopelessness and failure.
I agree. I agree very much. So I think what we're trying to make a point to our community. This is a community-wide thing. It's not just something for our schools or for an organization, a nonprofit organization like Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's not just for probation. It's for the whole community. It's the way we treat our youth, and we could make such a remarkable difference. Every person in this audience can make a difference by being a person for a youth or a child, that person that gives them hope. With that, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back.
Don't let E. coli mosh with your food. An estimated 3,000 Americans die from a foodborne illness each year. You can't see these microbes, but they might be there. So always separate raw meat from vegetables. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov.
Headaches and back pain are 2 of the top reasons people choose Mosing Chiropractic. Dr. Mosing also treats symptoms of numbness and tingling, as well as those injured in auto or work accidents. Dr. Mosing uses gentle chiropractic techniques, as well as electric muscle stim and cold laser therapies. Call Dr. Mosing today at 634-0733. No spine left behind at Mosing Chiropractic.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. Mayor Diane Jones, your host, with Rick Miller and Dr. Paul Ty. And we are talking about Kids at Hope. How can we be a better community because we believe in every child's success, without exception. So Mr. Miller, Rick is sharing with us a little bit of information today on how our community can do that, all of us. So tell me about the difference between a genius and a realist.
Yeah. So when we do our trainings and our workshops, our institutes, our symposiums, we gather lots of people and we have these rich conversations as to what a community needs to do to help all children succeed. And we basically divide the community into two segments. One is we call realists, the other we call geniuses. And we believe that we have the capacity to either be a realist or be a genius. It's a personal choice each of us makes in our lives. And we define a realist as someone who predicts the future based on the past. So if all kids haven't been able to succeed in the past, guess what the realists will believe? That all kids won't be able to succeed in the future. They're always going to base the future based on their past experiences. That's what a realist does. But a genius has a other capacity, and we all have this genius ability within our minds as well, is that's to be able to visualize a world that doesn't exist. And we had geniuses in 1776 that were able to visualize a world that had never existed before called democracy. We've had geniuses be able to see that we could put a man on the moon, that we could find a cure for polio. Even if we didn't find a cure for polio years ago, that we weren't going to give up until we found a cure for polio. And that's what geniuses seem to be able to have, that capacity that realists tend to give up on. If it hasn't happened in the past, it's not going to happen in the future. But geniuses don't give up until they make something happen that hasn't happened in the past. And what we believe we need to make happen is finding a way to help every child succeed, no exceptions, and not to give up on that. That's what a genius can do for us, is see a world that doesn't exist and give us the roadmap to help us find that world and create that world for kids.
Sounds like a great idea to me. So what is the difference between a program and a cultural strategy?
Well, if Paul's career and my career has intersected at different levels. Paul's an educator, my field is child and youth development, but yet we share a common passion for children. So whether he was a principal in the Dysart School District, an assistant superintendent of Littleton School District, or the superintendent of the Mingus Union High School District, our careers continue to intersect. We found each other because we believe that we are more effective together than either of us was alone. And we believe that that was true for an entire community. So I could have easily gone to Paul at any one of those points and said, I need you to adopt Kids at Hope and show it, and it'd be a school-based program. Both Paul and I understood that that's not the effectiveness of Kids at Hope. So we couldn't place it as a program within a Boys and Girls Club or Big Brothers and Sisters or a juvenile justice system or a school, that it really had its full promise was available to us if we could get an entire community involved in it. Because when you think about it, kids don't grow up in one segment of a community over another. They're just not the sum total of their school experience, not the sum total of their family experience, not the sum total of their community experience. They're the sum total of all those experiences. And the more we involve those different segments of our society to work off of a common game plan on behalf of children, the more effective we will be collectively than any of us can be individually.
I like that idea also. So a community strategy versus an agency or a school strategy.
Yeah.
So you just kind of covered that, I think.
That's right.
And it's about the community.
Yeah.
It takes all of us,
and
each one of us.
And it doesn't happen in a program. You don't run Kids at Hope Monday and Wednesdays and Fridays from 9 to 10, and you run Youth at Risk on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 12. That Kids at Hope is your cultural fabric. You come to Cottonwood and you believe, welcome to Cottonwood, Arizona. We believe all our kids are capable of success, no exceptions, and we do something about it. What do we do collectively about it? We make sure our kids don't grow up disconnected or abandoned. We don't have to do that in a program. We just see kids in the neighborhood. We see them in schools. We volunteer. We give back. But we let the kids know that they're living in Cottonwood. It's a place where everyone in Cottonwood believes that all those young people growing up here and believes that they're all capable of success. What we do in Cottonwood that what makes us unique is that no kid grows up disconnected. No kid is abandoned. we find ways to connect with our kids, that they can count on us for guidance and information and support. And the third thing is walk up to any kid in Cottonwood and ask them if they know how to mentally time travel. Then stand back and listen to them talk about their future at 4 destinations. And when they can do that, you know every kid in Cottonwood, Arizona is growing up hopeful. And it's hope that drives our future.
And I like the kids' pledge. I mean, they actually talk about hope. And,
Yep.
you know, that's a great thing to do. I mean, I think different schools and different organizations have been doing this, and it's just, you know, the light shines when the child who's never thought he could succeed even in his own mind or her mind are going, wow, I have hope. So let's talk a little bit about the definition of success.
So we have a hard time truly defining success. One of the great challenges Kids Hope experienced in our research effort was to try to define this elusive word called success. We asked 1,000 people across the country to define the word success for us. We got 1,000 different definitions. If you're trying to help kids grow up to be successful, we should have at least a common definition. And so what we discovered, there were really 3 definitions of success. The first one was a personal definition. Whatever you decide is a goal for yourself and you achieve that goal, you're a success. We should celebrate it. Our only condition is it's not unethical, immoral, or illegal. Other than that, if you want to learn to quilt a blanket and you quilt a blanket, you're a success. If you want to learn to kayak and you learn to kayak, you're a success. We should really recognize and accept this idea of personal success. That's huge. Sometimes we forget about it. The second definition is bureaucratic or system success. That's a third party's definition for us. Every bureaucracy has a definition of what they want their employees or their participants to achieve. It may not be their definition, but it may be the bureaucracy's or the system's definition. That's the third party. Standardized tests, a baccalaureate degree, a good job, fulfilling the responsibilities that your boss has required for you. Those are bureaucratic responsibilities, and that's a definition of success. The third definition is what we call cultural success. And cultural success is beyond our bureaucracy, beyond our personal interest in our goals. What is it that collectively we as a community want for our children? What is this remarkable concept of cultural success is? I think the answer to that from our discussions and our research basically defines success as being able to contribute to your home and family, be a good member of your home and family, contribute back to your community, pursue your education and career goals, and enjoy the quality of life through hobbies and recreation. That we as a community, we may not be teaching reading, we may be not teaching driver's ed, we may not be teaching math or science. Those may be isolated to different organizations. But what can we do collectively for our kids? And we can help them have a vision for success as a family member, as a community member, to themselves and through their education and career. That becomes our cultural definition of success.
All right. So we have just a few minutes left, and I want to talk a little bit about how a community member might be able to attend Kids at Hope meetings if they want to help, or also want to wrap up with how is Kids at Hope making a difference? And do you have some evidence?
We do.
Okay.
Paul, you want to talk about how to...
So we have a steering committee. Mayor Joens is one of our members, and we have many of the organizations, because you go back to the notion of it takes a village to raise a child. Well, 2 years ago, Rick was passing through town and said, hey, can you stop for an hour and just talk to people? And so I was new to town, was able to bring people, including Mayor Joens, together, and he introduced the ideology, and everybody said, yes, we want that part of our community. So we have a steering committee. It meets every month, and multiple organizations. It's certainly not limited to schools. And we share ideas and have brought a lot of things and activities to the community to help align our efforts and our beliefs. And it's we're never going to be there. We're always striving. The outcomes that Rick will talk about too. We'll start to see more tangible results. But behaviors are driven by beliefs. So if we want to change people's behaviors, we have to first change their beliefs. So right now we're really focused on informing people about the ideology and aligning their beliefs with ours, that all kids are capable of success with no exception, and that will drive the behaviors of the adults to help our kids be successful. So that's our main focus right now in a general sense.
And I think if someone would like to attend a meeting, they could call Brandy Bateman.
Yeah, my assistant is she's the organizational queen. She,
so if
tells
you wanna,
me where to go and make sure I get there with what I need.
Make sure you're on time.
She organizes the meetings, and Kathy Wambacher and I co-chair the committee.
Yeah, Kathy Wambacher's just been a real driving force of
Absolutely.
Kids at Hope in our community, and working with Kids at Hope that she deals with in the Yavapai County probation arena. So I'm really, it comforts me to know that she is, and Scott Mayberry, also the director, that they are rethinking of how they think about youth and youth challenges.
Absolutely.
And really believing every kid should be believed in, and every kid should have hope.
Yep.
And I think that can make a big difference in our society and our community, and hopefully working up to larger areas of life. So anything you'd like to close with today?
I think we all knew that people that were hopeful seemed to do better in life than people that weren't hopeful, that were hopeless. So we understood that hope was an important dynamic to have. We weren't sure of how one acquires hope. Does it come in your DNA? Is it taught? Where does hope come from? And now we have a better understanding. Now that, recent research has given us MRIs and fMRIs, we can actually take pictures of the brain, we can take videos of the brain, we know where hope is processed in the brain, and we know it's actually a skill set. So we can play to the science of understanding what hope is. And if we can help more kids become hopeful, then they seem to live a better, more contributing life than to give up on kids by calling them at risk and washing our hands of them. No, adults can do a whole lot better job in helping kids learn the process of hope. And we also learn from this whole experience is that you can't teach that which you don't know. So if you yourself aren't a hopeful person, it's going to be tough for you to teach a child about hope. So not only do we need kids at hope, we equally need adults at hope.
Absolutely. So in closing, it really is all up to us to make a difference in a child's life, a youth's life, and to give them hope. And that's the way it is in Cottonwood.